It's always 11. And 45.
We are recording.
Okay.
We are recording. So
Actually, I'll tell you what.
More standard work.
Whoever just came in with number 602-4353, who is that?
Isn't that Bert?
Bert, is that you with phone number 602?
Yes, that's me. Thank you.
It looks like Ron.
so much.
We're good to go.
Okay, we'll let Bob get his chips going. Yeah, right.
And please be aware, these microphones are very sensitive, so whispers, everything gets heard. So
Okay.
Yeah, that mic is picking up those chip crunches really good.
Good. I'm done.
It's mine.
I'm just showing the difference between Polish and Polish. There you go.
Every word I say.
Okay, no gavel, so we'll bring the meeting to order. Diane, roll call.
Commissioner Crone,
Present.
Commissioner Pulaski,
Present.
Commissioner Olszewski,
Present.
Commissioner Mackey,
Present.
Cloud, absent. Commissioner Baylor,
Present.
Commissioner Thompson,
Here.
Commissioner Moore is absent. Commissioner Wong.
Here.
Ron's up there. We can see his chin.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there you go.
We can see his chin. I know.
There we go. Happy birthday, Ron.
Recognize the most efficient.
Let's see. So, self-introductions. You want to go ahead, Steve?
Sure, we'll go around the table. Steve Rebuffo, I am the port director. Jim Jager, Port of Alaska.
Sharon Walsh, Port of Alaska.
Cheryl Beckham, Port of Alaska.
Eugene?
Eugene Carl-Haveman, represent myself, self-appointed government watchdog.
Paul Rogers, Port of Alaska.
Nightingale, operations and maintenance.
And I see we have Travis Frisk, the CFO, on the line as well.
Correct. I'm on the line. Thank you.
You, are you taking those down, Jim, or?
Yes, we got them all.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Paul, bring us to a safety moment, please.
Sure, you bet. Hey, good afternoon. It's great to see everyone finally again.
Back.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. The new Delta virus, the COVID-19, we're not out of the woods. We're far from being out of the woods. And I'm not gonna inundate you with repetitive info that's been on the news lately. It's not mandatory masks in public buildings now. But I just wanted to pass on a couple points for if you've been fully vaccinated. And fully vaccinated is 2 weeks after your second vaccination. So to reduce the risk, wear a mask indoors in public if you're in an area or substantial or high transmission areas. If you travel in the United States, you don't need to get tested before or after travel or self-quarantine after travel. And keep in mind, all these are right off the CDC's website as of today. You do need to pay close attention to, if you do travel outside the US, international travel. You don't need to get tested before leaving the US unless your destination requires it. Also, you need to show a negative test result or documentation of recovery from COVID before boarding an international flight to the US. The masks are still mandatory. I just got back from Portland last month, and masks are still mandatory at the airports and on the airlines. We know that. Also, healthcare facilities, Providence, I've been going to Providence a lot lately. Every facility that they have, a mask is required. So, and I'm sure that's the same way at A&MC and regional as well. So just make sure, if you travel outside, just keep abreast of the changes. It's a pretty fluid situation, as we all know, for the past year. And questions, comments?
Yeah, quick one.
Okay.
Has anything been shown on the effectiveness of the difference between the Pfizer and the Moderna?
I do not know that.
Okay, thank you.
But I do know, back to the mask, don't wear a face shield in lieu of a mask. Some people think that the face shield is, you can wear the face shield in lieu of a mask, and that's the furthest from the truth. And that is still, the CDC still backs that up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Paul.
Have a great day.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Jim, did you see in-person watching?
No, you can. We'll do that in self-introductions.
Sorry, I just came in late, but I'm just here on behalf of Senator Holland. He was interested in the port suing and been reached out by Mayor Bronson and all that, so he wanted someone to come in here for the commission meeting and as well as potentially in the next few weeks, possibly back from session to do a court tour, so just here listening in.
Can we have your name, please?
Yes, Craig Valdez.
And actually, Fred, you were on my list of people to call this afternoon, so let's talk after the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Let's see, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second, Paul. Yeah, please remember to state your name.
Oh,
We move forward. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Approval of the meeting minutes.
it should be the May 26th. I don't know how the date didn't get on there because the copy I sent forward had the date on there. It's the May 26th meeting minutes is what we're here to approve.
All right, Garrett Long making a motion to approve.
Second, Lashetsky.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thanks for the corrections too on the original, Jim.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I sent some grammatical corrections from the first reading.
And you incorporate, and we've incorporated them already. Thank you, Brad. I was trying to figure out who was correcting my spelling, so thank you.
Let's see, moving on, let's see, port director's comments.
I'm gonna keep mine brief because there's a lot for the staff to pass on to you guys. So, but I'll start by, thank you very much for your warm welcome back to Mr. Ruckus. We are certainly thrilled to death to see him out and about. And you can tell he's pretty darn mobile. And we are all very happy to see that and happy to have him back in the group. So, and your concerns for him over the course of the last few months have been appreciated, so thank you for that. And the only other thing I want to mention at this time, and I have one more comment, but I'll save it till the end, is, so here you are, sitting at your new conference room table. Okay, not because anybody put any great thought into it, but it's 8 feet wide. So if we go back to some kind of Delta variant response, we can sit on both sides of it and not have to worry about being unable to hear what folks are saying. And, so we can sit 4 people safely around the table. But we did this because, well, you saw what we've been living with for the better part of 15 years, and it was beginning to show its age, and it was time to update. So we invested a little bit of money to not only change out the furniture in here and to buy something that we know we can dismantle and move when it's time to move, but also to put some upgrades to it. So these are plugs. These are plugs, and the plugs are hot. We put the we put circuits in the floor, and so the table's plugged in. If you bring a laptop computer and you're sitting at the table and you want to plug in, knock yourselves out, and we'll give you the Wi-Fi access just like we do for everybody else. And we put the smart board on the wall, and we upgraded the smart board. So you're seeing some stuff you probably haven't seen the last time the Port Commission met in this room, and it served us well. Again, happenstance, it was all here by the time the pandemic hit, and life changed to Teams and Zoom, and pick your electronic meeting version. But we were able to adapt to all of that without a whole lot of aggravation and grief. So happy to have it here. And now let the really important stuff make its way to you through the staff.
Okay. So Informational items. Shannon, you still with us?
I am, thank you. This is Shannon with Operations and Maintenance of the Port. Starting off with maintenance, the group has been doing a phenomenal job on being proactive and keeping the grounds clean and safe out there for everyone to do their work and daily business. On the they've also been doing the hydrostatic testing. Udahoven has completed the hydro testing from the dock to the Pobi, and the port maintenance side has been doing the POL's hoses. And they're done with POL 2 and wrapping up POL 1 for the hydro testing, and then that should be a wrap in preparation of the further construction. Operationally, we've been doing the weekly meetings with the PCT project and the users. I can't thank everyone's participation enough to keep those lines of communication open, despite the difficult conversations at times, but it's definitely helped us in getting over a lot of hurdles. And the only thing on the radar operationally is a tentative return of the deployment that went out late June, I believe it was, tentatively returning in September. Outside of that, no, unfortunately, cruise ships or anything projected to come in port this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Sharon, any news on our new engineer?
The port engineering manager position has been advertised for the third time, and this time it looks like we are getting some applicants coming in. We don't have the final list until it closes next week.
Closes on August the 2nd. We got permission to leave it open a little bit longer than the municipality tends to leave their ads open. And we also, we also pushed it out to other than the free websites that the community uses. So we put it out on Indeed and a couple of other of those worldwide websites, and actually got a couple of hits. So at least 2 of the applicants that are being looked at by HR came to us from Indeed. And then I think we've got a couple of in-house folks who are reconsidering their first pass. And so we'll see where this goes. And I hope by the time we sit around this table and do this again the next time, there'll be somebody taking care of the engineering services duties.
And no one will be more happy than me to
More
see
happy than
that happen.
Yeah.
So, but in that vein, the work that we've been doing, some of it will be familiar to you. We have some additional wharf pile jackets. We don't have, it's actually finished up work from last year. We're doing about 30 plus jackets this year. Then we have some, let's see, Ship Creek Boat Launch. Have an active project out there to repair the planks that you drive down, but we also recognize that a couple of years ago we rebuilt the fingers, the exterior especially, which is great. But the interior is starting to show its age now, and so we have we're going to apply again for Ports and Harbors grant to do some repairs, and we have our engineering as-needed engineering services contractor Muffin and Nickel is looking at a concept design, and we'll see what happens with that. We realize we have to keep going on that. Keep in mind our revenue off that side is very, very small, but we do the best we can with our operating funds to the big capital projects. $1 million, $2 million projects, we scrape the cash together and try to keep it going. Okay, so also the Michael Baker has been with us since the first of the year now as our engineering services contractor. They've got a full plate. They're up to 20 tasks of different types. I think the most relevant to you right now is the wharf assessment. And they took, I mentioned this last time, the inspection we did last year with the engineering data on 1,400 of the 1,400 piling under the main wharf is all been plugged into a model, and they're exerting different forces onto that. They know, for example, they have the wall thickness, the actual wall thickness that we've measured from the all the work we did last year. and they're plugging that into a model and exerting different forces on it, like ice pan or seismic or whatever, and that should tell them where the dock will fail first. Certain types of forces are exerted on it. So we're, of course, very anxious for that report, but it has to be right. And so we don't want it from them until, it's been thoroughly checked out. So they are still saying mid-August to have the studies completed and some initial report to us. We're all eagerly awaiting that, and I know that administrations are waiting it, and the governor's office is awaiting it. Everyone wants to know where our weak spots are in the dock. So that's the biggest deal that they're working on.
Yeah, this is Bob Pawlowski. Will the model show what the weight load per square meter
what will come out of
the
it.
surface of the dock is as well?
Right. The product will inform what sections need to have lighter loads on them. Right now we use 1,000 PSF, but that may change. We'll see what comes out.
Thank you.
So that's probably the biggest thing they're working on, and then just a variety of keeping the place patched together projects. They've also been supporting the PAMP and some small items, small type things that we need to answer right now. We use them so that we can keep focused on the construction. So any questions on day-to-day stuff?
How many filings were we doing this year?
35.
35? We did 50 last year, or did they complete?
This is a part, last year we were still replacing FEMA piles that FEMA's paying for, and this is part of that. So it's not our usual 100 or 50. Last year we did approximately 50, I think, of the regulars, and the FEMA ones are kind of accounting for 35. Okay.
Well, we're fast approaching that point where we're out of piling that can be jacketed.
It's true.
We've done that much since we started this.
The other thing we're doing is kind of long-term capital planning is we've done a lot of work with the storm drain. Last year we did an extensive investigation of the storm drain condition. We have a network of storm drains all around the port, and we need to know how those are doing, because last thing you need is a sinkhole developing because it's getting into a compromised storm drain and, a tractor trailer drives into it. That is not something we want to see happen. Just like what happened on the Glen Highway the other day. We don't want any of those on the port. So we were evaluating all that information. We have an initial report from Michael Baker, and we'll use that as a capital planning tool over the winter to determine, what areas need attention first. So we can, but the best thing is now we have some pretty good data to make these decisions on, instead of, I don't know, our gut feel is this is weak. So that's all. I'm feeling good about that. Okay. The next thing that we're working on, it doesn't really fall into engineering issues, but it's a cool thing. We're finally in the process of organizing the Anchorage Fire Department training for fighting a shipboard fire, or not fighting a fire, but assisting the shipboard crew when if we should have a fire breakout. Well, it's the first piece of it is planned for mid-September. Chief Mike Davidson, Battalion Chief Davidson, I believe he's with Station 4 now, is coordinating all that. And the problem with COVID and whatnot was flying in instructors. We hope nothing changes this with this latest uptick. Most of it will happen at the Fire Training Center, but we'll have one day of drills here. So we've got that on the calendar. But that's being funded by a port security grant. So that's pretty cool.
Will it be on board a ship? They'll actually visit a ship?
Well, we're working on that. It's tricky. We can't, our container ship customers, that's such a quick turnaround. But we're looking at some different ways that maybe ahead of the training, they host some, familiarization tours or something,
That would be a great help.
Yeah.
COVID's also complicating it because
True.
right now we're minimizing interaction between the ship and shore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So the uptick, that might mess that up. But we've got it on the calendar, and perhaps by the next meeting, we'll be close to having it. Okay. Then we have, that grant is good for 1 more year. If I can't get an extension, we're gonna apply for an extension because of COVID, but if we can't get an extension, we'll still have time next year to do maybe 1 or 2 more trainings and maximize the use of the funds. So that's our goal. Okay, I'll let the security guy talk about the Newport security grant when we get to that. And any other questions on that? I'll slide into the modernization program item.
Sure, Paul, just the wharf assessment, I'm sure you said it, I didn't catch it. Is it the whole wharf or is it just the POLs or?
It's the terminals 1, 2, and 3. It's actually not the POLs. Terminals 1, 2, and 3. Yeah. Well, yeah, POL 1 will be in there
By
too.
default.
Yeah,
Right, okay.
the connected wharf, I guess.
Got it.
Yep. Okay, ready for the modernization program?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, the fun stuff. The ongoing construction project is, we have been so fortunate. I was wanting to pull up a picture, but it's kind of tricky the way we're set up here today. But all of the monster piles are in, the 9-foot or the 12-foot diameter piles. The crew just crushed the schedule. They finished 6 weeks ahead of schedule on that, which I can't tell you how happy we were, because it really reduces our risk of being able to complete it because of beluga issues or whatever. There's so many unknowns, and we don't know if there's a giant glacial boulder under one of them that would screw it up. All those are in. That was the pounding that you all heard and felt if you were anywhere near downtown or South Addition. Or Government Hill. So that was really great. The pile caps, the big caps that sit on the top of them, are all set, and they're attaching them to the piling right now. And the next thing is the catwalks, which are coming up on a barge right now. They should be here August 2nd. And the last material barge with all the rest of the big pieces and parts that's there on that barge. So also, we're putting the fenders together. It will be similar to the Nikiski fenders. So they're welding on the attachment pieces right now. Any of you captains that have seen it from the water side will have seen that. And that's been tricky work because they can only do some of it at low tide. So they have to wait for the tide to come down, get in there, weld, and then get out before the tide comes back up. So it's kind of interesting. So once we get the catwalks attached, these things are really going to look stitched together. So the piping has been a lot of work to get the 6 fuel lines from the Pobi from the platform over to the Pobi, and they're just about complete with the underground work. We do have, and they all are, and they're also laid out on the apparatus, on the the cantilevers that are holding the pipe rack alongside of the trestle. So the next piece is the tricky one, is tying into the Pobi. We've been having close coordination with our fuel customers to do a lot of that work while the cement ship is here, which we have a cement ship coming in on the 4th. And because fuel 1 won't be available during that time anyway, it's a great time to do the Pobi tie-in work. But it's all tricky stuff, a lot of coordination. We have to pull the liner down inside the containment. We have to coordinate with DEC, and so we're at a very, very busy time. And then on the platform itself, a hose tower is up. You can see that if you drive in or out, and the operations building is being framed up. The operations building is a panelized building, so it's not modular, like they're not just sitting one building on there, but it is panelized, so you'll see a frame, and then the wall panels will go on pretty quickly. So we're still on schedule to substantial completion November 30th, and final completion December 31st. Keep in mind there's commissioning, testing, do all the controls work, or all the valve seating right, all that kind of stuff. But we're still looking good for finishing up on time. So all of that is good. Moving on, where do we go next with the modernization program? Is before we get that, self-floating dock will also be moved this year. And we're salvaging the existing causeway. We have to drive 12 new piling. We're still waiting for our permit from the Corps and the National Marine Fisheries Service, but we expect the public notice period is closed on that, and we expect a permit about mid-August. Of course, the permit says you can't do any piling work in August, so some work is also prohibited in September because of their peak beluga months. So that still gives the contractor time to install the piling in October. And this contractor has proven that he can really drive piles really quickly. So if they say, oh, we can't possibly get done, we'll be like, we saw you do it. But it's been a great, challenges all around, of course, but it's been a real good relationship with Pacific Pile Marine, and we're happy to continue working with them. So the floats for the South Floating Dock are also on that materials barge I talked about, so they'll be here next week too. So things are starting to, like I said, all come together. Moving on. We met, our last meeting here was the 26th of May. And on the 27th, we had a roundtable meeting with the key users, the Corps of Engineers. No, sorry, I'm getting my meetings mixed up. And we determined, or they adopted the concept for going forward, which is called the Modified 140 concept. And basically it's building a 2-terminal dock, 140 feet outboard of this present one. And it went to the assembly a couple of weeks later, adoption.
Yeah, June the 22nd. Yeah.
Right, and was adopted by the assembly as a concept going forward. So that's the plan. Then on June 14th, we had a meeting with the Corps of Engineers of permitting charrette, we called it, where we had the main regulatory agencies come to the table. We had National Marine Fisheries Service on the phone from DC, and the Endangered Species Act people from Anchorage were included. The Corps of Engineers was included, and we had a very good 4 or 5 hour discussion on what's it going to take to permit this new concept and what's the best way to go about it. And one thing that we're doing, and you'll see this on the assembly agenda soon, we're very close to finalizing an agreement with the Corps of Engineers called the 214 agreement, which is essentially, and it's allowed for in federal law, that an agency can contract with the Corps, and basically we pay the full-time equivalent of health, and that enables them to dedicate staff full-time to port work. And there's so much to do on this, plus all of our ongoing projects that need Corps of Engineers that we think it's going to be very useful. You're not paying them to give you a permit, you're paying them to review your permit, and it's no guarantee you'll get one. And you won't have a lot of conditions when you do, but at least you know you're not waiting in line between 12 other projects. And interestingly enough, the DOT has 2 of these agreements.
DOT has 2 and Ted Stevens has 1.
Airport has 1. So people that are dedicated to look at our situation, which is
well spent.
Yeah, as we've told everyone all along, permitting is a long pole in the tent in terms of getting the wharf piles, or the wharf piles, in terms of getting the new wharf cargo docks constructed. So we're feeling real good about that. We think we'll have it in place, allowing for assembly and everything else. So that's out for public comment right now, by the way. And we expect to have everything in place by the start of the Corps' fiscal year, October 1. So they have a person targeted to be our person who's been down to visit us, and I think it's going to really help.
Sharon Simon, so that's a dedicated person you can pick up the phone?
Yes.
Wow.
Our person, full-time, looking at our stuff. And we will be keeping them busy full-time, I'm fairly sure. Yeah.
That's really handy.
It's useful because it keeps, once they learn the port, you don't have to re-educate.
Okay, exactly.
Right,
It's consistent.
right.
Yeah.
And I do want to thank Pobi, especially for, she was brand new in her position at that point, Director of Enterprise Services, Enterprise Services. Took the time to be there for the entire 4 or 5 hours, and it was like, oh wow, there's a lot to this permitting. So we really appreciate the interest, from the administration to, have you here, and so that's been great.
Sharon, it's Travis. Quick question. You may have said it and I may have missed it, but when do you anticipate permitting to be completed and for the second phase, the cargo?
Oh, goodness. Let's see. When's Haley's comment come back? No. Right now we're saying about we're estimating 3 years if everything goes according to our past experience.
We 4 years.
The
I'm sorry, the EIS is a 3-year process in
Right.
itself. So add 6 months on either end, it gets you to 4 years pretty easy.
Okay.
And we're just kicking it off kind of right, say 4 years from right now.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for the clarification.
So let me understand this correctly. We are requesting permits to complete the cargo dock, the Matson tote portion of this mod. We're requesting the permits now, and we don't anticipate receiving them for 4 years. Is that how I'm understanding this?
That's correct. What we are doing right now, it kicks off with when we lay an application on the Corps' desk, and we figured about 60 days from the permitting charrette to get that application put in. So Jeff's team, and Jeff's on the call, Jeff Bull with the program management consultant, and my counterpart on the consultant team. We anticipate within mid-August we should be laying a application on their desk. Now, is that going to be completely complete? No, of course not, but it's going to line out the basics of the project and it gets things started. Then we'll go back and forth with them simultaneously while we're doing the preliminary design. There's a lot of things that we'll have to examine and modify as we go. And then there'll be a point where, okay, this is it, and we go into the more detailed permitting process. Once we know exactly, or more closely, what type of foundation, are we putting in piling, how many, that kind of thing. Jeff, do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, so the EIS, the environmental impact statement, is really the crux of getting a permit. Basically, we apply for a permit. The Corps says, due to the size and nature of this project and the potential impacts, you need a full-blown environmental impact statement. And that's what we think they're going to tell us, and they're conferring internally on that. The EIS, they told us that they normally use 36 months for planning purposes to complete an EIS. Their best time they've ever turned one around was 32 months. So 36 months is a pretty safe bet. And then after it comes back, it either says, this project can be permitted or this project can't be permitted. And then assuming a favorable evaluation, it takes them about 6 months to go through the regulatory hoops to get everybody signed off on a permit.
So we can't do anything until we get a permit from the Corps.
That is not correct. We have to remove the south half of the north extension. That's one project that we could be working on. And we have to build the administration building. That needs to be done before we can start the cargo dock. So it sounds like we can do nothing until we have a permit, but there's actually 2 projects that need to be executed in advance of starting the cargo dock construction. So we got lots to do, but it is a long, arduous process for a project of this size. Absolutely.
Right.
Appreciate that. I'm gonna thank you very much, both Jeff and Sharon. I'm gonna drop off. I've got another meeting I gotta attend. Sorry about that. Thank you.
That's
Sure.
okay, Travis. Just go find us some more money, would you?
Money's not an issue. What's that issue is you guys got 4 years worth of permitting in front of you. Money's not the issue. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Travis. And I'm glad you mentioned the admin building. We're also, we can do that simultaneously. We are, the Economic Development Administration just last week did finally announce the availability of funding that they have under the CARES Act that they feel our admin building may qualify for, because the port's an essential facility, and for resiliency, and to be sure that we don't lose the administrative ability of the port because we all go down in an earthquake. They feel like they've told us they feel it's viable. You still have to earn the application, but so we're looking at that simultaneously, whether we get that grant or not. We're moving forward with the administration building, and it will be right over there where that sand tent is. It'll be a first floor parking and two floors of office space and a roof deck, similar to what we have now, and we're proceeding along with that. We've already done the phase 1 environmental assessment, and I'll have a concept, the concept drawing and the revised estimate. I'm sure I was supposed to get that yesterday, right, Jeff? Okay.
How far along does the design have to be before you apply for the EIS?
Okay, well, on the admin building, let's just talk about that for a minute. On the admin building, just to close that loop, we actually are probably going to put out a design build RFP. So we can start that process here in the next few months, whether we get a grant or not, move forward with that. And we could be breaking ground next spring on that. So that's a good thing. Working with, we still have building permits and whatnot to do on that. Working with our good friends in development services, you can get a partial permit for the foundation while you're finishing this and that. So that's a pretty discrete piece of work that we feel pretty confident about doing. Okay, back to the main permitting. On the design for the EIS, we can go in with a preliminary concept. Part of an EIS is examining different alternatives that and the environmental impacts of different ways of doing it, different ways of building it. Looking at alternative pile types, sizes, arrays, different just different ways of skinning the cat and showing which has the least environmental impact. Jeff, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, sorry I missed your earlier question, but so the EIS is the best case is we hand them a full design and they evaluate it, but the normal process, nobody can do it sequentially. It's got to be done concurrently. Nobody has that much time, but it's the expectation is that we revise our application a handful of times throughout the process. As we give them what we have right now, which is a little more than a cartoon, let's call it. They start asking questions, we respond and update our application with more detail in it. And so it's an iterative process that we're allowed to not have a full design before we start the application process. So if we couldn't, we'd be multiple years farther down the line. So we have 30% level design documents. We'll have those pretty quick, and that's sufficient to submit the application. The Corps makes the decision to initiate an environmental impact statement, and that's where we go. So the Corps can't make that decision until we've submitted our application. So that's our critical path right now, is to get our application assembled and submitted as soon as possible.
And the 30% will be based on, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's going to be pretty much based on the principles applied for the petroleum cement terminal, correct?
Yes, yep.
So same type piling.
Yep.
So that's our starting place, with a few lessons learned along the way. So that's our story.
And of course, I'm going to ask the obvious question, but the administration is fully on board with the actions going on with the assembly and the port users room.
I'm going to pop this over to Steve, but before I do want to
compliment
and Pobi here. I want to say, frankly, we've been very supported by the incoming administration. Eyes and ears have been totally open, listened to all the briefings that we've given, very quick on the uptake with the, understanding the situation. And we feel actually complete support.
Yeah, no, I agree with Sharon's assessment. And I'll make some comments toward the end there, but that's not stopping anybody from whispering in the mayor's ear and everybody else's ear about a better idea. And I'll talk a little bit more detail on that. But what folks fail to realize is there's a law we have to follow now on how this process happens. We've got a design that is approved by the assembly. If we change it, we have to go through the whole review and approval process again to come back to whatever the new thing is going to be, and that's another time suck. So if you come up with a better mousetrap, it better damn well be a better mousetrap. And that's not been the case so far. But I have to agree with Sharon that, we've had some of these pretty serious conversations with the mayor because he came into this with an understanding that things were a little bit different than what it is we've been saying, only to find out it's really not. And that there were a lot of these issues that have been brought up as having never been addressed by the port and by Jacobs before, that in fact have, over and over again. So we've just got to go through this dance and get done with it, and then move on. But in the meantime, we've got a course that we have to comply with, because we've got a design that was approved by the assembly, and until the assembly changes their mind, this is what we're going to build.
And what's significant about this design that was approved at the round table and by the Design Advisory Board is total involvement of the users. Tote and Mattson, we've spent the better part of a year and a half working with Tote and Mattson, vetting different configurations and different shapes and sizes of the dock and locations of the dock, and together as a group, a united group have come to this design, and that's the difference between this and previous styles. Is like, okay, you hire some engineers and staff puts it together and they go build it. This has been much more of a collaborative needs assessment between the main users of the cargo docks and the
This is
project
Jim,
team.
and actually, when we say Tote and Mattson, we also mean Tote and Mattson and their consultants. They're engineering companies, so these ideas have been vetted by multiple engineering companies.
Yeah. So they've got skin in the game because they've invested in hiring their own experts to run what we think is the best idea through the meat grinder to satisfy themselves. And that's how we came to what we have.
This is Bob. I want to thank you guys for all the effort that's gone in, and for, as importantly, getting a strong working relationship with the new administration. Obviously, time is critical, and this is such a critical infrastructure.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to mention is that another folks that are more at the table than ever before is our congressional delegation. They listened in to the entire permitting trip. They asked for a follow-on debriefing with us, and that was a good hour-long discussion about what can they do on the congressional side to streamline this permitting if at all possible. And there's some things that even they can't do. The Marine Mammal Protection Act is a pretty sacred thing. So recognizing those limitations, but where can they help from their side, down there. So we have more engagement there than we've had in the past as well.
May I add the last point of clarification? As of January 1st, my son was not with the congressional delegation. So just so you understand.
Paul? Steve, this is Paul. I've got a question on the permitting. Just so I'm clear, is it all or nothing? So when you talk about the plan we have put together and the law that has to go through the the administration, okay, got it. But as things start to be built out and we're moving ahead with this plan and we find a small tweak that has to happen, is there a tolerance for small changes to get to the end goal? Or if they find a small change, do we got to stop? Well, I can redo.
Good, it's a good question, Paul. I'll give you the layman's answer, then I'll defer to the engineers. But because we are at the concept stage and we have to get the preliminary design, which is about 30%, and then from 30 to 100, there's going to be a lot of changes.
That was my point, right?
And so that's part of the process. It's when you digress completely from what you put on the table in the first place and want to do something else, that you got to do a do-over.
Makes perfect sense, but got it.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Well, no, that's right. And the ordinance that sets up the Design Advisory Board actually says, at significant stages of, development, you come back and get them endorsed.
Yeah, sure.
So by the assembly.
Good.
But what we were looking at that, the best case is stages of development down this way, not let's go here, let's start back here. Because we don't have time. We frankly don't have time. That's what this engineering work assessment study we expect to,
Simon, do you have a question?
Yeah, no, Simon Leszewski here. I'd just like to echo Bob's comment about working with the port users. I think that was really important. And I've been here for a long time, and it's only recently that even the users would call us commissioners, and get, to get our feedback and involvement. And I think that was really, really important, because I remember in the past, the users would come and jaw was open saying, really? Yeah, but no, this is really helpful, I think.
I think Captain Ward has his hand up.
Ron?
Thank you. Feel a little removed here, the other side of the country, but been plugged in the whole time, and I do want to echo everyone else's sentiments. Nice job. Thank you for working it through the assembly and then bringing the administration up to speed, and for all the efforts to get to where we are. My question involves this meeting that's going to be held tomorrow with the mayor and his chief of staff, Amy Dombowski, and apparently the users will be there. I was called by Madsen the other day about this, and I haven't heard anything about it, so I'm wondering if it would make sense for Brad as chairman of the Port Commission to maybe be there, having some of the best knowledge. He's been around the commission longer than anyone else, and the port longer than anyone else. If this is going to be a crucial meeting tomorrow, I would suggest that, and I'll make a motion if necessary, that Brad be allowed to attend. I think they're actually asking for people to attend, is what I had heard from the Port Commission, and I would think he would be the key component. Over.
Yeah, this is Steve Rebuffalo. Ron, I'll respond to you there. I'm saving talking about that to my closing comments, but I don't think there's going to be an objection if there's a Port Commission representative at this. You think so, Colby?
I think it would be just fine.
Yeah. So I'll delve into a little bit more detail about what the heck is going on when I get to my closing comments. Okay.
Well, thank you, Steve.
Hey,
I
Steve.
could have asked Brad. But...
Steve, this is Bert. Val and Alex aren't on the call, but I'm going to be at the meeting as well, and Val and Alex will be there, and I'm sure they wouldn't have a problem with that, with Brad being there. Over.
Yeah, thank you, Bert.
Are you available?
What time is it? I have no idea. This is the first I heard.
It's 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
3. Okay. I'll make myself available.
Thank you.
You just got voluntold by your fellow commissioner.
Yeah, thanks, Ron.
He's on the beach.
Yeah. Hey, it's his birthday. We'll give it to him.
You got it.
And just in closing my part, I really looking forward to the day when we can take you guys on a tour of the new facility, Petroleum Cement Terminal, and let's keep in touch on that. Okay.
That'll be wonderful. Okay, Cheryl, finance.
Okay, now me. All right, so I'm sorry, very sorry for the small print. Hopefully everyone brought glasses. And I didn't bring my computer to put it up on the board. Next time I will.
Post electronic.
Yeah, I was used to that, so I apologize for not having the forethought to do that. But so in your packet was included a snapshot of our finances and expenses through 6/30. And we can talk about it section by section. One of the things that I want to talk about in revenues is we were advised last week that the state of Alaska received CARES Act money and was going to distribute cruise ship head tax. Well, they were going to distribute the CARES Act money in lieu of the cruise ship head tax in the same amount as that we received for the 2019 cruise ship season. So the port will be in receipt of about $66,000 from the state for the cruise ship head tax for the year 2020, since no cruise ships came and no passengers visited Anchorage. We are going to be able to, fill that box on our budget, which we didn't budget for because we knew, but we'll take it. 66,000 is they just went with the amount that was issued to all of the locations, and everyone in the state who gets cruise ship head tax, that'll be the distribution. So it was a great good information for all of us. So the rest of the revenues are tracking right on to what we were expecting. We're about 55% overall on our revenues. The investment, the very last line for cash and construction investment pool, those are numbers that are not input by me or my staff. They are input by public finance. So that's the gains and losses on the money. So it's not anything to be too excited about at this stage of the game. We're hoping just to see that go up. And Ross and his group are fairly awesome at projecting the budget. So I would anticipate we would be close to the 200,000 mark at year end. So moving on to our expenses, the personnel services are just slightly below the 50%. We've had our engineering manager position vacant. So that's going to contribute to our lower than budgeted expenses. The non-labor as well, due to a lot of the work being done in the summertime. We, delayed billing and just, getting all those expenses in and captured by 6:30. That's a little far in advance. So by September 30th, we should be able to see that get right back on track or slightly under. The next section is going to be your legal services. Steve and I are in conversation with Bob Owens, and Bob feels fairly certain that the remaining amount that we have in the budget will be sufficient for this year. So we're always concerned about taking care to be sure we have money for that and well in advance of needing it. So our conversation last week was just that he's anticipating that will meet the needs through 2021. And then in the 2022 budget, we'll also receive an estimate of what we might need to include for any ongoing legal expenses.
Other than what we get billed for in IGCs.
Oh, right. That's down below in the IGCs. Right. So this line is strictly Safe Arth and any cost associated with the PIEP lawsuit. So the MISA and your dividends, they'll be paid in July. So that will fill in next month on your report. The debt service, I think we chatted about that last Port Commission meeting. We paid our first debt service payment on our bonds. So we'll have another one due in December. So we'll see that come up. That's a hard-coded number, so we'll just be sure to, that'll be 100% at year end. Depreciation and amortization is a number that comes from the system as well, so we have that fairly well dialed in. Your IGCs, same. Those are the services from all around the muni that the port are provided with, and those get coded automatically from central finance each month. So we'll see down below. Any questions on the numbers?
Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
put it on in a message. My question is, when we do a tariff, we have 90-day cash flow. And I'm curious how this $900,000
Right.
fits for a 90-day cash flow.
So that was Bob's question to me in email this morning, so I'll just answer it for everyone because I think it's a great question. So on our worksheet, we always give you a snapshot of this day and time on 6/30. So today we estimate that we'll be in a positive cash flow situation. But Bob's question was related to the tariff. When you set the rates, one of the requirements was that we maintain a 90-day operating cash on hand. So that actually gets calculated at year end when the auditors do the final numbers, and we have to provide the debt service coverage ratio to our bond holders and all of our interested parties in making and meeting our benchmarks that we said we would. So we'll see that at year end, and so this is on 6/30. This is where we're at, but the 90 days you'll see at the end of the year when the audit is done.
Thank you. This is Bob who asked the question. Good question.
Yep, great question. Anything else?
We're coming up on August, which means it's time to do that assembly mandated annual review of debt service coverage for the rates that were put into the tariff for the PCT, and whether or not we're collecting too much or not collecting enough, right? So that's about to start.
Right. So yeah, I was going to mention that after the tonnage reports at the bottom. But what Steve's talking about is the annual report that we have to do for the tariff to say, yes, the rates are substantial to meet debt service. And we have a contract in place with Parish Blessing to begin that work in August. So that will come to you probably in your September meeting. September, October timeframe. We have a date that we have to have it to the assembly. So we're well prepared and set up to get that underway.
And last year, we got it to you before we went to the assembly with it, so you saw it. And if we can make the same timeline, we will.
Yep.
Sure, one question, this is Paul. And I know we've talked about it before, the miscellaneous seems off, when you look at the numbers.
Right.
And that's, since that's so broad, could you explain?
Yep, so
what's
that
going
the
on?
miscellaneous holds a lot of the cruise ship ancillary charges, like the ramp moval, anytime they use the ramps, anytime that they use the labor for just port services that are outside of our regular lines of business is where that goes. So that's mainly where we saw, the decline without the cruise ships. So I can get you a specific list, Paul, if you want to know.
No,
Yeah.
it makes sense now.
Yep.
Got it,
Yep.
thanks.
COVID related, exactly. Hopefully next year it'll be just fine.
No, yeah, and given what we're forecasting for cruise ships, we may, as we build the 2022 budget, not be as generous to ourselves.
Right, exactly, right, we'll make the adjustments. And to Steve's point, that's will be one of our jobs over the next 2 to 3 weeks is just, preparing the operating budget for submission in 2022. So we'll, take into consideration all of the services that we provide, all of the mandatory requirements that we have, as well as, some of the considerations that Sharon's asking for, for us to spend more money. So, but I think, the GS or the 214,
yeah.
GS 12, 214, that's, we'll be able to clearly articulate that and, ask.
Travis said money wasn't a problem.
I heard it.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, the string attached to that answer.
Oh, I know, the cringes.
Well, it's on tape. All right, so your tonnage is down below. You can take a look at that. We're doing just great. We have, overall, I think everything is, has a very positive outlook and, moving forward.
This is Bob, along that line on tonnage, and I guess this is more an operations question. How are we doing with the shipping backlog? There's stuff coming into Alaska. Are Matson seeing problem getting containers transferred?
No, not that anybody shared with us.
Okay, I see it on the commissary shelves, but that's besides the point, and other shelves, but anyway.
That's local, that's more of, local individual stores are having inventory issues because they can't get certain items. In terms of throughput at Port of Alaska, we're pretty much right on normal operations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of issues with available containers, just empty containers, is there on one side of the globe or the other, but I believe the carriers have their own, so.
That hasn't been an issue here.
They keep shipping them all back empty to fill them up again.
And one
What
last,
the total container total containers across the dock annually? Does anybody have that number?
450, I think, 450,000.
Yeah, did you hear that, Ron?
Yeah.
450,000.
450,000?
That was our
1,200
times. Yeah, we have them in and out, right? So we have them inbound and outbound, and I have them.
Is that TEUs or
No,
containers?
that's TEUs.
That's TEUs, so
Sorry,
it's about
TEUs.
240,000
Yeah.
containers.
Cut it in half.
But we do,
That more sense. Okay, thank you.
right, sorry, TEUs.
You're making us a lot busier than we are.
Well, just doing my part. All right, and one last thing I wanted to mention is that the Port's 2020 financial statements were issued last Friday. They will be on the website this week.
I don't know, it's news given to me.
I sent them to you yesterday.
Okay.
So.
They'll probably be up tomorrow.
Okay, so they'll be there for everyone to have a look at. No issues, no findings, feel free to.
Could you email them to the commissioners?
I certainly can, yep.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Nothing else, Cheryl? Thank you. Any questions, more questions for Cheryl? Kevin, run on the quiet. Business Development, Resiliency, and Port Security by Jim.
So this is Jim, and I'm going to start by saying Sharon's not the only one with a list of projects that are going to need funding.
But you're already funding your own with your port security grant.
We're funding some of our projects. So with that as a start, I'll start off with some good news. We did learn last week that we had a successful campaign for our port security grant. We asked for, what did we ask for? We asked for $1,722,357 in port security grant funds, and we got $1,687,000 or $7,687. So they shorted us about $30,000 or $34,000. But we got almost $1.7 million.
1.7, pretty nice batting
We don't have the specifics yet, so we're not exactly certain where what got funded and what didn't. We do know that we had 4 major projects we were pursuing money for. The biggest one is our access control system, which needs to be replaced. The second one is our microwave radio system that makes all the cameras and access control equipment talk to each other. That will be updated. And then we have some gate enhancements with our J-Bear gate and some CCTV control enhancements that we plan to do. But as soon as we get the specifics, probably later this month, we're going to be off to the races.
And I need to add a big announcement, which is I am no longer the only one writing grant applications around here. Mr. Jager wrote the applications for those port security grants with the help of our consultant that we have, Muffin and Nicole. And so that was his first win. So first try, first win. So, you know, perfect record.
Well, on that note, tomorrow we hope to turn in our port infrastructure development grant, which is we're asking for $20 million for the north extension. So we've got that running, and then everybody seems to think that, oh, this grant gravy train looks pretty good. So we have a list of additional grants that we will be pursuing in short order. The list right now seems to be getting longer faster than it's getting shorter. So that's a big part of my project, or the load of papers on my desk right now. In other items, okay, so we've been spending a lot of time bringing the new administration up to speed on the port. Pobi's been under the dock twice now. We gave her an experience with our car wash system where we put her in a boat and then really soaked her in the rain. So we've been bringing the administration under the dock, giving them the briefings on the port condition, and it's been very good. We had our annual MTSA, that's the Maritime Transportation Security Act, inspections earlier this month. We passed with no discrepancies noted, so that's good. We have had a train of maritime cybersecurity folks coming through ever since the pipeline hack that happened out on the East Coast earlier this year. All of a sudden, TSA and the various agencies are very concerned with cybersecurity, and that is becoming a very big issue. The good news is right now we don't have a lot of cybersecurity exposure, mostly because we're such knuckle-dragging troglodytes that we don't have a lot of internet connectivity. The better news is that we just got this $1.7 million grant that's going to give us a lot of that connectivity. So we're going to build the security into it right at the ground floor, as opposed to coming back and trying to add security after the system's been built.
If I can add to that real quick, we are finishing, like within the next few weeks, our port security grant for the geographic information system, where all of our data is now moved over to secure servers at the GCI server center, and all of our port information is now in this, cyber secure environment for anything that we have that's on a map. And what's good about that is now we can put our fuel lines and the camera array and those kinds of items we can now put on the map for our GIS system, so that we can be more efficient managing those assets. And so that's very nice. It's just about tidied up.
And as far as going forward, We are getting ready to start a series of legislative tours. We're trying to coordinate with the special sessions down in Juneau so that we can start bringing some of the legislators up to speed. We had some folks from the governor's office under the dock earlier this week, so we're bringing the state administration up to speed. We are, well, probably while we're holding this meeting, Washington DC, they're having one of their votes on the transportation funding. So we're anticipating that as transportation projects get funded in Washington DC, we're going to have a bunch of new opportunities opening up. So we're setting up for those. And we are also moving forward with our port power plan that I talked to you folks about at the last meeting. We are making progress on developing the port microgrid, and that's really my 2 cents worth for the day.
Paul, go ahead, please.
Jim, Paul Mailer, thanks and congratulations on the grant. Is there any co-pay on this, co-share?
Yes, there is a co-share on it. So of the 1.7 million, we have about 500, and depending on exactly, how the final grant breaks down, it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 545,000 we'll have to come up with.
7,525.
Where do we take that out of in our budget? Where's that come from?
So what happens is when.
Because that wasn't allocated, right? So
That's
we had
correct.
this grant,
So that'll
which
come
is
from-
great, but then we have to have a co-pay.
Port equity.
Yeah, and we'll put that in the 22 budget.
Some of it may be port equity, some of it may be from our port security group. So we have to look, I don't know exactly how it's going to break down.
Right.
Ask me after I see the specifics, we'll have.
About 500 of the 1.6.
About that, yeah.
Got it. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm not trying to evade. I
just
can't answer your question right now.
Every year it's a different ratio,
Right.
so I was wondering.
Well, although port security grants have stayed pretty consistently 75-25.
We did get one of the bigger awards in the country, though. And there were only a couple of winners.
And this is Bob, and I'm going to continue to be a broken record. But in the briefing of the legislature, we continue to stress the partnership and strategic importance of the port with DOD and potentially their role in funding future applications.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Gary. Jim, when you go down and talk to the legislature, you've done this year after year after year, and nobody seems to write the check. Where's it stuck in the machinery that, you have a great conversation, everybody votes yes, it needs fixed, and then where's no budget allocation?
There is not a single answer to that question. There's friction throughout the system. One of the things that we're hopeful, especially with the new administration, is that we may have some access to some of the, we may be able to smooth some of those rough edges off now.
Okay.
Well, we now have an administration that is coming from the other side of the aisle that.
We're talking about city government here.
City government,
Okay.
correct. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's on the same aisle as the governor's aisle.
At least for now. Okay, thank you.
Well, is that a fair description?
Jim, just Paul Mailer again, one comment, and this is related to my fellow commissioners. Cyber is a big deal, and I'll say as commissioners, we're kind of vulnerable for the ports because we all have external private emails and a lot of big files moving back and forth, and just to pay very close attention, obviously infrastructure is being targeted, and the responsibility on us as we're sending emails back and forth with big files, that's a target. So just in our own best interest, pay a lot of attention to what's coming in, what's going out. If we don't recognize it or don't feel good about it, call and make sure
Cyber is
that's
a
right.
very complicated item because, it can be simple information data theft, which frankly, at some level with the data that you're sharing is relatively low risk, So even if there's a high likelihood, the cost of failure isn't catastrophic to the port. But there are other things. So for instance, with the pipeline failure out east, one of the big issues was not only that they turned off equipment, they got that going pretty quickly. You have manual overrides, that sort of thing. But all the meters were controlled through the cloud. And for some reason, the owners of the fuel didn't want to be distributing fuel without knowing how much they were distributing.
Right.
You know,
Yes, that was some reason.
who would think that you might want to keep track of your fuel? And that was what was preventing operation, was because they couldn't, basically the whole sales piece fell apart. So if you can develop your system in such a way that you avoid that exposure, that's how you protect yourself.
We've had the luxury of being able to sit and watch and learn from what's been happening. So that when we get around to growing up, you know, there's a lot of this that we can, you know, build in ahead of the concern.
Well, and I mean, traditionally, so for the last 3 years, the Coast Guard's been telling me, oh yeah, we're very interested in cyber. Make sure that your cybersecurity is the best industry practices, at which point you go. What does that mean? Yeah. And, you know, today I just got a 31-page document from the cybersecurity folks in Washington that said, these are the exact standards that I want you, that we have noticed people have been failing and that have allowed various compromises to happen. 31 pages of this standard, this standard, this standard. And when I just signed it to my cyber compatriots over at the Muni, they were like, thank you. This is exactly what we need. So they're very much coming up to speed now.
Okay, anything else for Jim? Anything online?
Good job.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Old business.
Mr. Chair, we have no old business to conduct at this meeting.
Well, I guess one question is where we are, and I don't know if it's old business because it hasn't come up yet, but the report for.
Yeah, I had that on my closing comments notes.
Okay, so new business being done?
Yeah, there's a very high likelihood that at long last you will have new business at your next meeting. As a consequence of, we're soon to receive this HDR rate study that has been holding up.
Well, I was gonna say, isn't this a study we were vetting?
Yes, yes, that's the one that, you were on the selection committee for.
Right.
Yeah.
I might as well know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, not the least of which is mine.
Okay. Public comments. Eugene?
My name is Eugene Haveman. I represent myself, follow the public process. In the public process, and appropriately a decision made by the governing body is no licensed public interest. First, I do like to compliment, when I come to these meetings, as you know, I attend a lot of meetings, in particular the Anchorage Assembly and the Borough Assembly and so forth. At least you make a real good effort to make things more engaging as far as connecting with the people, with what you're doing, and the decisions being made. And I really appreciate that. And also I appreciate over the years the cooperation and not resistance that I see when I go to Anchorage Assembly meetings, particularly last night, where you make a real good effort to try to do things right. And I thank you for that. And when you do that, the end result is your decisions are going to be more liking the public interest. And that's what we need. And also the public will be more comfortable with decisions and support whatever comes to it. So I'd like to just point out the agenda. I see there, before you approve on the packet, before you approve the agenda, you should have on the document something shaded in there, draft. Could you, it's on here. As far as, I mean the minutes, correction. Should be that should be noted in the background, draft, and then that will clearly not become an indication that you approved it yet or not. And then you release it as now it's been approved. When you approve it, because you might make changes in the meeting. Also, the packet, the minutes were not. The minutes are here for me to pick up as a member of the public and get a copy. But when you look at the packet, it was not included there when you go up to the document. The financial presentation was there, and the agenda was there. So, and that's one thing. But again, for me attending your meetings, to give an example, you're granting that people could be remote, and you're also creating an option for people to listen into those meetings later on. I'm glad you do that versus out in the borough, which I've already said, is that they need to stop that port, what they're doing there. That it's been mismanaged, and I told them also that we need to put full support to Port of Alaska and Anchorage and stop with what's been repeating that for the last several months. I have been attending those meetings for a number of years, and I'm seeing it go in a direction that is not helping. And we got to think of ourselves as a state together as a team, and not just what one party is doing over in one area of the state. And particularly dealing with the Port of Alaska, it is the Port of Alaska, and it was properly named by you, and I give you credit for doing that. Instead of saying Port of Anchorage, it is the Port of Alaska, and has a vital importance to our state. And I also like to say this in closing this, attending these meetings are very informative. It's also reflective of the work and how you're getting into the picture and figuring out what needs to be done. That's a complete reverse of what I see out in Matson Borough. And I see a more concrete effort of people over the years being involved, both in staff and board members, and I'm glad to see that. And I know your job is quite difficult, and I don't know your complete picture because I'm not around 24 hours a day in what you do, but I also know that in your work, it becomes more difficult for you because you're dealing with forces outside that need to be brought in, like elected officials in Anchorage, and with the way they operate there, your job becomes more difficult. And I don't know how to change it. I've been pleading with those officials to be more sensitive and connecting, and the end result was we learn from each other and we make the right decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eugene. Dan, can we put the draft on the future minutes? Appreciate that correction. Any other public comments? Oh, online we have a hand?
Who'd you see?
That's your hand.
You see one, Bob? I do not see one. Is there anybody online who had a comment? I think we're rolling.
Okay. Seeing none, let's see, board director's closing comments.
Okay, so I've got a couple of things I wanted to pass on. So I'll start with the one that's got everybody's interest peaked now that we've talked around it for 2 hours. So, and those of you that have been around for more than one mayoral transition and this project in this program, you will note that like clockwork, every time we have an administration change, there are individuals who insist they know better than we what needs to be done to modernize this port. And they take their advice to the new mayor. And that has happened yet again by the same players. And Mr. Paul Foose, who knows way better than me how to run a port and how to manage a program like this and how to, what is in the best interest of the state, has a plan. He has a plan that was created by PND, and he wants to show it to the mayor and get the mayor to shift the gears and swap what it is we've invested, the time we have now in, and go to that. So the mayor, probably one of the wisest moves I've ever seen made, he said, no, I'm not going to do this in my office. And he went to Amy Demboski, the new municipal manager as well. He said, no, I'm not going to do this in my office. We're going to collect the brain trust and you can present it to them and we'll see how this flies. So that's going to happen tomorrow afternoon, 3 o'clock in the mayor's conference room. We've got to, we know what it is he's bringing to the table. It is exactly what was brought to brand new Mayor Berkowitz 5 or 6 years ago. with not much change in the graphics, not much change in the design. The only big change has been, we have all seen it before. We have all vetted it before, and unbeknownst to Mattson, who went to new Mayor Berkowitz along with P&D to present this design, this new Mattson, the new Mattson leadership down here, didn't know that happened. So as part of the last year and a half of these conversations that we've had, brought exactly the same plan up as, well, why aren't we doing it this way? And we've gone through all of that vetting and all of that engineering review and all of the pros and cons of that plan as opposed to what it is we've settled on, and have kind of vetted it and decided that was, for a whole lot of reasons, that was the wrong way to go. The way we want to go is what it is we've decided now. So for us, it's sort of another opportunity to shine the light of day on all of the analysis that has gone on as a collective group with the port users, with their engineering companies that they've hired and paid for to do this review with us, to make Jeff and Sharon's lives as miserable as possible until we make sure we have the exact design and everybody is satisfied is the right way to go. So we get to shine the light of day on all of that and explain why it's time to start leaving well enough alone. And gracious enough to allow the users to come to this meeting. And yeah, I would love to have somebody from the Port Commission, especially somebody who's walked this road with us a couple of times, to be there as well. And my goal is to hopefully just drive a stake through the heart of all of this do-over desire and let us get on with the matter at hand. We are convinced there's no cheaper, faster way to deliver what it is we need to be around for the next 75 years to support the population of the state.
Steve, this is Garrett. So what I'm hearing you say is there's some alternative plan that's been bantered about for decades prior that sort of gets pushed off the deck, and so it's coming back again. So is this suggested plan hearing tomorrow to resurrect this dead fish that's been kind of put away before? And I guess what I don't understand.
That's how I see it.
Okay.
Having killed the fish.
So the Assembly just approved a concept for our repairs. And is this alternative plan that's being bantered about tomorrow totally different?
Yeah.
This is the original plan.
Yeah.
Basically.
So is that the one with the sheet metal piling and all that craziness? That has failed?
Yeah, not to no, it's a hybrid between the old PIEP design and a cargo dock and a pile supported cargo dock. It's a hybrid of the two. It's sort of a Anchorage version of that which was done in Kodiak. That's really what it is. Assuming that, all the geotechnical, all of the hydraulic, all of the everything is the same here as it is in Kodiak. So you can simply, change, cross out and put a new name at the bottom of the blueprints and build it here. Yeah. So, I mean, this is the life we lead. This is the, this is why we get paid the big bucks to slog through this. We kind of hope that this would all, go by the wayside with this whole design advisory board process that formally selected and codified and documented in law what the way ahead was. But it doesn't seem to deter folks who think they have a better idea from sharing their better idea. So, we've got to go through this, and hopefully for the last time, we're going to go through this.
To resurrect a little bit of history, the original PN&D design was based on the 9/11 terrorism, blowing up things. Today, if you had to design it, it would be a cybersecurity issue. So having a structure that is not buried in dirt makes a lot more sense than in protection. So it's the world's different between blowing up things and cybersecurity.
But the good news is the new administration understands what's going on, and I think they're doing a very good job of saying, okay, we're gonna deal with it right away so that we can keep moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is we're gonna do this 29 days into the new administration. So that gives us damn near 3 years to get the show on the road and move this thing along uninterrupted, unimpeded, and to a point where, you can't unring the bell. You really can't unring the bell. So that's what we all hope happens tomorrow.
Okay.
So that was my first point.
All right.
The other is the HDR rate study. They are, mid-August. Mid-August is when we should have the final report from them. I'm gonna get my first look at it next week, and we'll take a look at it here in-house and ask our questions. And then, because the difference between when we started this and when we're gonna end it is a new administration, one of the requirements that I think is good to do is to get the new administration at the table and give a presentation to them. That was not in the scope of work when it was originally published. It was simply to hand us a report. And my assumption there was that most of the people that would be reading it were the ones that were around when we started this, but that is really not in fact the case. So let's let these guys, give them an opportunity to go in and present and get the new administration to ask the hard questions from a fresh set of eyes. And so we went back and modified the contract, put a presentation in, which has kind of moved the official end date of this to mid-September. But it'll be done in time for us to be able to invite as many of you who can come to this presentation that we make to the administration as possible. And we'll make a formal presentation of it and the recommendations at the next Port Commission.
So this is a study this is Garrett, to homogenize the projected tariff that we might assess to roll on, roll off, lift on, lift off, whatever system, it doesn't matter. And that's the whole idea of the study, is to help everybody see that this is the best process to go forward with in the tariff structure that we might want to consider.
And the impetus behind it was in the draft plan of finance that I think you guys have all seen. There was a big disparity between what were the suggested rates that one ocean carrier would pay versus the other, based on the cost of that particular part of the infrastructure that was to be used by them. And what we were looking for are there other optional ways of handling the financing so that we don't find ourselves as the public entity, picking a side with respect to, rate setting and driving one company potentially out of business or out of Anchorage at the expense of the other. So while you can, if you take the objective look, you can say, well, it's just too bad. That's how it is. We're sort of in a position where the economics up here, don't allow you to be so cavalier. And we've never been there before. We've never had to cross this bridge, if you will, as a port. So we want to do the right thing at the end of the day. So let's get the experts who walk down this road with others, help us figure out the way to navigate it. So I think part of what we're going to get from them are a variety of different ways that we can structure the financing for this going forward, so we can at least have options to pick from. I'm looking forward to seeing what they come up with. And they did a pretty good job of looking even at the tariff. And a couple of ideas, their job was not to tell us how to build this, so I had to correct that steer, early on in this. I mean, we've got a plan. We know what it is we're going to build. That's off the table. You're doing the financing part of it. You have to assume that you agree completely with that which we're doing, so that we can get the show on the road. So that's where the theme and the focus of their report is going to come from. So
Mid-August.
I beg pardon?
August.
Mid-August?
Mid-August.
Yeah.
Okay. Couple of other just minor points I wanted to bring up. I know Sharon brought up the Ship Creek boat launch. My biggest pet peeve in all the time I've been here is the Ship Creek boat launch. It's a money pit. It's
Is there a lot of utilization of that, Steve?
No.
There is utilization, there's very small revenue. People launch,
Yeah,
set
and,
letters and whatnot,
and-
but
and
they
that's
pay
kinda-
$5.
yeah, I mean, I just, I never cared for the way we got handed, this tar baby to deal with, and I've never, it is now to the point where, we attempt to collect a little bit of something, but it's voluntary. Because, because we,
You get cash box.
we can't
your
put,
$5.
we can't put a tariff, in place for this. Otherwise, the line outside the mayor's office door will be longer than he could stand to want to have to deal with, because.
The railroad kept the portion where they could paid
Yeah.
parking was and gave the port the boat
You
launch.
can see it up there on that new map. It shows.
Effectively, the port is taking care of the municipal public service, providing a boat launch.
Yeah, so this is,
That's exactly.
so this is our version of the ferry system, it's a loss leader on the balance sheet. But it's a challenge to maintain. We cringe every spring when we go back to look at what winter did to it. And then we gotta dredge all the silt out of it, only to look at it 5 weeks later and go, where's all the silt back? Because that's just how we roll down here.
It's,
Yeah.
it is the only safe place to launch a small craft, in Northern Cook Inlet, and even with that, you can only do it at high tide, so.
Well, that too has a nice launch over there.
So, I guess the moral of the story is, if I'm rolling my eyes when we're talking about the Ship Creek boat launch, it's good for you to know why I am. This is our contribution to recreation in Upper Cook Inlet.
Wasn't there a security issue around?
There was and still is, because it's a gathering place for all sorts of,
Nefarious activity.
Thank you.
Well said.
Nefarious activity. And we put a couple of cameras out there, so we've been able to mitigate some of it. But, it gets more challenging in the wintertime when there isn't traffic in and out of there on a regular basis just because of business. And it's dark a lot. So it's a great place to go hide and do illegal things. And it's an excess burden on the fire department, the police department, to add it to any kind of a patrol route.
Right.
Because it's so far off the beaten path. So we put the cameras up there to kind of get some help. And have been able to, at least alert APD to when the really goofy stuff is going on down there. But we just can't expect to see them every time, we want to make a report that something's happening and show up. So it's a challenge for a while there, we were dealing with the vandalism to the Cook Inlet tug and barge guys' vehicles. So the railroad let them build a little cage that they can all do their parking in. And some chose to park in it, some didn't, and there's all kinds of vandalism that goes on down there in vehicles for the folks that work down there. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge, and it's well, we'll deal with it. We'll deal with it because we've been asked to.
At least we got the 1.7 million for security grant.
Yeah.
Well, they might,
And we can't put you can't even put an access gate
right.
with a card reader there
Right.
because that's the railroad's property. And they have to agree to allow you to
Facility.
do that.
Sharon?
So I guess the thing really is, I'm just asking Cheryl, what was the receipts of the cash box down there last year, and somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,900.
Oh,
wow.
goodness.
And the cost we paid alone, we've got in the dredging and then the repair project, we have millions of dollars in that thing. So I don't know
Every year.
how in the tariff or where.
We have at least, tens of thousands every
Right.
year.
Right.
The dredging
The dredging
about
is,
40,000.
at least. So it's, I don't know if we just say it'll never be a cash positive thing and we just live with a pittance amount, or if we should be increasing some of the user fees, and if, how do you collect them?
But to collect them, I'd have to
Right.
hire somebody and put them down there.
Right.
And for a couple of summers, we did the folks that will bring their RVs up here and they'll park at the schools, and then we did that for a couple of summers too. But the activity that went on down there was the interest in leaving their RV down there And dealing with all of that was a safety issue for people that we would hire to put down there. So that went away as fast as we started that as well. It's challenging. It's challenging, and
It's not addressed in the tariff at all?
no. And if a tornado took it away tomorrow, I'd be the last guy to shed a tear. For the record.
But the bottom line is, it's a public facility that we maintain on behalf of the municipality. It helps local business, set netters, for instance. It helps local recreation, fishermen, and it's also an important public safety issue because the fire department uses it whenever they need to do a water deployment. So
until we get our footing.
Yeah, so more or less, we're stuck with it. Move on.
Maybe we can count those costs against the MISA payment then.
I'll suggest that.
Yeah, good idea.
Well, before sunset on Ron here,
Well, I've beat enough horses to death, so I will stop there.
I have a question. So the litigation has been hanging around forever. Where's the proposed settlement on that, or is there one?
It's in the judge's hands
Yeah, I
now
know.
to
Is
decide.
he still,
He's got everything he
still thinking
needs.
about it?
He's still thinking about it, yes.
Is there any idea when he's gonna?
No.
Before the end of the year.
Would that be nice?
When, is that the theory, before
He
you?
hasn't, I don't think it's come out of his mouth that I'll get you an answer before the end of the
But
year.
that's the expectation.
I do have one more announcement. I just found out this morning that our Marriott grant team is going to be visiting us the week after Labor Day. So 3 or 4 folks from the Marriott grant group will be coming up, making their field visit to make sure we're building what we said we were going to.
there you go.
So that'll be nice and fun to show them around.
Great.
Show.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else from the board director?
I'm sorry?
Anything else from your
No,
closing
no,
comments?
thank you.
Commissioner comments, unless there's any, you do.
Start with Ron.
Ron, you want to go with the final comment and we'll send you what time?
I have some comment.
You woke me up. For Steve, since we didn't have any questions at the end of his comments, my question relates to reappointment of commissioners. I looked on the Boards and Commissions website and was somewhat surprised to see that I have been expired for a year. And Diane sent me my financial disclosure, which I did fill in.
That's a really poor choice of words, but okay.
Yeah.
Okay, here to your question. This is Steve Rebuffo, and Brad and I just had this conversation this morning. We have been, the municipal auditors have reviewed the Port Commission as part of this. They do the sunset clause reviews every year to make a recommendation to the audit committee of whether or not to keep this commission or board or let it go away. And they've agreed that they are going to recommend it stays in force. But in their report, one of the findings was the fact that we have 4 commissioners who there are 4 who are legally on their terms because they haven't expired yet, and there are 5 who are still serving with expired terms. Now, the way this has happened in the past is that the responsibility for replacing commissioners is the mayor's. The assumption has always been, if nobody has sent you a letter that's thanked you for your service so you could move on and your term has expired, you can continue to serve until such time as you get notified you've been re-upped, or thank you for your service, here's your letter. So nobody's illegal. Nobody's illegal because nobody, unless you are just not responding to the fact that you got a letter. And usually I find out if a commissioner got sent a letter because they're going to ask me to recommend a replacement. So we're legal in the sense that the way the process has been run for many years now, we're complying with it. Now there is somebody on the mayor's staff who's responsible for boards and commissions. So it's not a part-time job, it's kind of a full-time job. So I think as they get spun up, there's going to be a little bit more of a periodic review of what who's expired, who hasn't, and outreach to ask if you want to continue or not formally. And somebody will keep those lists updated. But in the meantime, you're all good to go. We have no complaints about your service. And I trust you have none about ours. But until somebody formally lets you know it's time to go, you continue to serve. Ron, did that answer your question? Or did I put you back to sleep?
No, it answers the question, but it begs another about, the fact that there's no, okay, so there's basically some precedent, but it certainly seems like there would be a legal procedure for this. I mean, Simon's hasn't been re-upped since 16. So my question.
Well, hang on a second. We always ask if you're interested in continuing serving, and if the answer is yes, we pass that on. If nobody is responding to that, that's not our problem.
Well, my question, Steve, I mean, just from a legal standpoint, we approved a tariff, and some of us may or may not have even been, actually commissioners at the time without having been reappointed. That could be a problem at some point. So
it could be
out to the administration and say, we'd like to have the commissioners reappointed.
Yeah, and it's been done. And it's been done, and the audit report will be out shortly. They wanted to make one amendment to it that they asked Brad to have a look at this morning. I showed it to Brad. He's okay with it. So that audit report will be out shortly.
And it is covered in municipal code, the process and the code of regulations.
Yeah.
On boards and commissions, so you can dive into that online.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we got to worry about that loophole, but I appreciate where you're coming from on that.
Should make sure.
Because at the end of the day, the assembly approved the tariff. At the end of the day, the assembly approved the tariff.
That's a good point. We just recommended it and they approved it. That's true. Okay, that's all from Maine. I'm out. I got a few things to do. Thank you, guys. See you next time.
Hi, Ron.
Happy birthday.
At least one Corona is as yet undrunk.
Kevin?
I have no questions at this time.
Comments?
Nice crane there, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you. That was taken from a job up near Cantwell. We'd installed piling for part of a highway project there. I'm actually very happy to hear you're impressed with Pack Pile. Sure you're all aware those are pile drivers, part of my local union, 2520 pile drivers and divers. So I'm always proud to hear them doing a great job, and Pack Pile's a great company. I've worked for them in the past, so very happy to see that the port project is just kicking ass, because watching them swing those big pile around and hit it with the hammer, I was a little jealous. I gotta say, it was the biggest pile in North America right now, and I really wanted to be out there with them. But I know those guys personally, and I'm actually trying to get one of those guys to apply for another position so he can train the new up and comers that are coming in. So, yeah, that's my comments to you. Thank you for the meeting.
You're welcome, sir.
Any other commissioners?
Yeah. Yes, Steve, you can roll your eyes. Outside of the commission, I've also got involved with the Navy League. The Navy League has interest in fixing or repainting and cleaning up the big anchor sitting down at the thing. So I'm going to be working with Steve. I've raised the question of lead so that we can know right up front whether that's going to be a problem. Mattson has given me several sources of companies that would be able to sandblast and paint or do whatever. I took pictures and visited the site today to see what's going on with the job. Through the Navy League, I'll be reaching out to different groups to see about how to make it to recognize both USS anchorages, given the new and given also the cultural value that went with the Tenina location. So I'm just letting you know it's going to be a work in progress over the next 6 months. some of the people want it done this summer. I'm not being realistic about that, but I at least want to let you guys know that as a member of the Navy League, I'm taking that on. But I appreciate working with Steve because it does say right on the plaque, donated to the municipality of Anchorage, which means you can roll your eyes now, Steve.
No, that's okay. I mean, that's the land side of the boat launch. I mean, that's, that's a pretty nice place. And so we loop Parks and Rec in as well, because they've stepped up and taken a little bit of responsibility for keeping it neat. And I want to make sure that, and Shannon knows what's going on as well. So I just want to make sure that we weren't doing anything that required them to be involved in it as part of this process. And, the challenge is going to be, how do you sandblast it and clean it if it's cheaper to do it there than move it? Yeah, and so there's going to be some conversation about process if we get to that point.
Right. That's why I said.
Oh, some folks guardsmen, they'll know how to do it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Any comments? Dave's?
Nothing from me today, Mr. Chairman.
Garrett?
No comment, just a good meeting. Thank you for everybody's hard work.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Glad to see Paul back and healthier, on the mend. That was great to see and very excited.
Any idea on the next meeting?
We'll have to figure out the next one.
Next one on schedule would be 29 September.
September.
Sounds good.
What month is this?
It's that part of July.
Do you want to mention HPA? Yeah, no,
Huh?
are we still in AAHPA? Do you want to mention that October?
Oh, I completely forgot about that, yeah. We agreed to host the Alaska Association of Harbor Masters and Port Administrators Conference in Anchorage this year, week of October 23rd. Yeah, at the Captain Cook. So we're gonna, we hired Alaska Destinations, the company that helped us when we did this in 2015. And things are going pretty well. I mean, we've got we've got sponsors enough to cover the costs, where we only need about, 45 people to sign up to attend before we start making a profit on this. So it's been moving along pretty nicely.
Good.
So, and when we have an agenda, I will extend the invitation out to all of you. We're going to host a lunch here on the first day, on Tuesday. So we'll make sure all the commissioners know what's going on, and if you want to participate, you can.
And when is that, Steve?
October, the week of October, I think October 23rd.
You send something out?
I will.
Yeah.
I will.
How many people?
I'm sorry, week of 25, 26, 27. Usually we get about 125, 150. And that's when they're hosting it in Skagway, Sitka, some of these other places. But when it's Anchorage, folks will use the excuse to, make their, biannual trip.
Shopping trip, yeah.
And come and bring spouses, which bumps up the attendance a little bit too.
Costco trip.
Okay, 29th, I may or may not be available.
I'm not available on the 29th.
Okay, I'll be on the team conference because I'll probably be on the Big Island or something. Or something.
I'll be here.
Well, we can slide in the first week of October.
No, let's stick with 29th and.
Or a week earlier.
Yeah,
The fourth Wednesday is actually the 22nd. There's 5 Wednesdays in September, so is it always the last or is it the fourth?
No, good point. It's usually it's usually the third or fourth.
22nd is fine for me too.
22nd works for me.
22nd.
works for me too.
There we go. All right, let's go ahead and lock it in for September 22nd.
22nd? Okay.
Excellent.
You get that, Kevin?
I'm sorry, I did miss that one. My phone's been going off.
September 22nd for the meeting, next meeting.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. That meeting here. All right.
Everybody.
Tomorrow, we gotta go get the agenda out for the 9 o'clock.